Eila pekudei hamishkan, mishkan ha'edus, asher poked al pi Moshe. These are the numbers, the count of the Mishkan of testimony that was counted, and according to Moshe. Mishkan based palmim. It's known the analysis, the question. Why does it say Eila pekudei hamishkan, mishkan ha'edus? It should have just said Eila pekudei hamishkan, asher poked al pi Moshe. Or if you want to add edus, Eila pekudei mishkan ha'edus, asher poked al pi Moshe. Why does it have to say Eila pekudei hamishkan, mishkan ha'edus? That's one question. Another question that we have is Mishkan Aleph Namar Mishkan Stam. In the first word Mishkan, it just says Mishkan. It doesn't give it any type of title to it. But Mishkan Habeiz Namar Mishkan Aedus. And in the second time where it says Mishkan in the pasuk, it defines it. The Mishkan of testimony. In the third question we need to understand Mashakasav Asher Pukad Al Pi Moshe. What does this mean? So there are two explanations in the meaning Asher Pukad Al Pi Moshe. Either Shekoy Al Desamichle Al Mishkan Ha'edus. Either it's going on what it said immediately prior to it. Mishkan Ha'edus Asher Pukad Al Pi Moshe. The Mishkan of testimony that was counted by Moshe. V'lachein Namar Pukad Lashon Yachid. That's why it says Pukad in the singular. It doesn't say Pukdu. They were counted, meaning the Mishkan and the Mishkan Ha'edus. Kirak Mishkan Echad Pukad Pi Moshe. Only one Mishkan, the Mishkan Ha'edus, Bechinas Mishkan Ha'edus was the level that was counted by Moshe. That's one way of explaining what it means, Asher Pukad Al Pi Moshe, that was counted by Moshe's mouth. V'oid Pirush, another explanation, Asher Pukad Al Pi Moshe, Asher Pukad Al Pi Moshe, Koi al Klolos HaMishkan, that it was counted according to Moshe, is going on the general idea of Mishkan, not just the latter words, Mishkan Ha'edus, Gam al B'chinas Mishkan Stam, also on the regular Mishkan that it says at the beginning. Va'adrabe, even more so, HaPirish HaPasha, Dein Mikra Yotzim De Pshutai, the simple meaning over here in this pasuk. And we know a pasuk never leaves its simple meaning. In other words, all the commentaries and all the drushes and everything that's on top of whatever the simple meaning is. But when it says that was counted according to Moshe, it's referring to Eila Pekudei HaMishkan, saying Eila Pekudei HaMishkan, this is the numbers of the Mishkan, this is the count of the Mishkan that Moshe counted. So therefore, Asher Pukad Al Pi Moshe goes on the general idea of the Mishkan. Initially he says the numbers, and then he explains that it was, who was the one that counted it? Moshe. So it's the same topic, but a further elaboration at the end of the pasuk. These are the numbers, this is the count, and who did it? Moshe. So it's really a continuation to the beginning of the pasuk. We need to understand the connection between the two explanations. If Asher Pukad Al Pi Moshe is referring to what it says immediately before it, Mishkan Ha'edus, or it's going on the general Mishkan that says at the beginning of the pasuk. The pointed explanation this is, like it's brought down, the Inyan HaMishkan U'Ashras HaShchina. What's the whole concept and the purpose of the Mishkan? The Shchina residing and dwelling in this world. They will make for me a Mikdash, and I will dwell amongst them. These two concepts in the Mishkan, Mishkan Stam, the ordinary Mishkan, Mishkan Ha'edus, and the Mishkan of testimony, and Beis Dargis B'Shchina, these are two levels in Shchina, Shchinta Tata, the lower Shchina, V'Shchinta Ilah, and the upper Shchina, as we will elaborate throughout the Maimon. Valpi Hayidu, according to what's known, Shekol Echad Misrael Hu Mishkan HaMikdash Lo Yizbarech, that every single Yid is a Mishkan and a sanctuary for the Eibishter. So it's not just referring to the Mishkan that Moshe Rabbeinu made, that in the Mishkan that Moshe Rabbeinu made, or even in the Beis HaMikdash, there are two levels of Shechina that reside. There is the Shechinta Tata and Shechinta Ilah, but also every Yid being a Mishkan to Hashem has within him and comes down within him two levels. How do we know that every Yid is considered a Mishkan for the Eibishter? Like Chazal say on the Pasuk, Vasli Migdosh Chanti B'Soicham, they shall make from him Migdosh, and I shall dwell amongst them. B'Soicham, Loi Na'maral B'Soicham, it doesn't say, I will dwell in it. Meaning Hashem says, I will dwell in the Mishkan or in the Migdosh, but it says, I will dwell amongst them, within each and every Yid, which means that every Yid is a Mishkan for the Eibishter. So if every Yid is a Mishkan for the Eibishter, moving, it's understood. The two concepts in the Mishkan Stam and Mishkan Ha'edus, the regular Mishkan, and the Mishkan of testimony, Mishkan the Yisrael, it's also not just in the Mishkan that Moshe Rabbeinu built, but it's in the Mishkan that every Yid is to Hashem. So let's understand this further from what it says about Mishkan Ha'edus. Mishkan Ha'edus, according to what the Chazal say. On the words Mishkan Ha'edus, the Chazal explain what's the Mishkan of testimony. What's it testifying about? The Mishkan is the Mishkan. It's a place where Hashem resides. What's the testimony over here? Eidus hi l'chol b'ay olam. It's a testimony to all inhabitants of the world. Shakadosh Baruch Hu nisratzu l'Yisrael. That Hashem was appeased to the Yidden, even though it was after the Cheta Egel, and one would think that Hashem left and does not want to deal with the Yidden, but the Mishkan is a testimony to everyone. No, Hashem does reside with the Yidden. Hashem still connects with the Yidden. That is why it's called Mishkan Ha'edus, from the word testimony. So based on this Maimar Chazal, he says, yes, Shloimer, we could say, Yisrael hem Mishkan Stam, why the Avodah Torah mitzvahs. That the fact that Yidden are just Stam called a Mishkan, that's the Avodah of Torah mitzvahs. Because when a person does Torah mitzvahs, he makes the Shechina Shoyra within him, he makes the Shechina reside within him. Mishkan Ha'edus, the fact that they are a Mishkan of testimony, that over here you need to testify that Hashem is still with us. When do you need to have that testimony that Hashem is still with us? Why? They avoid tshuva. It's through the avoid of tshuva, because then, despite what we did wrong, and we might think that there's a disconnect, comes a tshuva and says, no, Hashem resides within us despite that, just like the Mishkan was a testimony that after the Cheta Egel, Hashem was still there with him. The Mishkan Stam, Mishkan Ha'edus, and Shechinta Hatav Shentri Law, we can connect it what was explained previously in the Torah, that the Mishkan, the ordinary Mishkan, and the Mishkan of testimony are the lower Shechina, and the upper Shechina, Shechinta Tata Hi Malchus, Shechinta Ilah Hi Bin this in Spheres. What is the lower level of Shechina? Shechina in general is associated with Malchus, but that's the lowest level, the lower level of Shechina. The upper level of Shechina is the level of Bin. And this corresponds to the difference between Torah mitzvahs and Tshuva. Top of the next page, Tzaddik. That's the difference between avoid of Torah mitzvahs and Tshuva. Shekiyim mitzvahs. One is fulfilling the mitzvahs. What are they? Mitzvahs HaMelech. They're the command of the king. What's the level of fulfilling the command of the king? Malchus. That's the level of Hashem's kingship. So therefore, mitzvahs has to do with Malchus. But tshuva hi bebina, the level of tshuva, the Zohar speaks about at length, is in the level of bina, toshuv hey, the upper hey, the level of hey law is in bina. Later on we'll talk about tshuva hey law and hey tata, there's tshuva tata, tshuva law. So he's saying that this is what he's going to bring now. Instead of contrasting Mishkan with Mishkan Ha'edus being mitzvahs versus the level of tshuva, now he's going to say that there's really over here two dargas in tshuva, two levels in tshuva. Kamya Shleimer, second line from the top. We could also say the Kivim Sham Mishkan, close Ham Mishkan Hoya Kapara Cheta Egel, since the Mishkan in general, not just Mishkan Ha'edus, but in general the idea of Mishkan was an atonement for the sin of the Egel of the golden calf. Therefore, even without the word Mishkan Ha'edus, even in Mishkan Stam, it also has the avoid of tshuva. If so, what's the difference between the two, Mishkan Stam and Mishkan Ha'edus? Mishkan Stam and Mishkan Ha'edus. The difference between them is Mishkan Stam hu tshuva tata. Ordinary Mishkan is tshuva tata, the lower level of tshuva. which is having to do with Malchus, Tashuv Heitato, as we'll soon speak about. Mishkan Ha'edus Tshuva Law, and the Mishkan of Testimony is the upper level of Tshuva, the higher level of Tshuva. This corresponds even more so in Mamuva Le'el Melchut Torah Shemishkan Stam Mishkan Ha'edus Shemishkan Terato Malchus Shemishkan Teila Bin. That ordinary Mishkan versus the Mishkan Ha'edus is the lower Shechina and the upper Shechina, which corresponds to Malchus and Bina. And Malchus and Bina are the two levels in the spheres of Tshuva Tata Tshuva Law. Ki Tshuva Tata, the lower level of Tshuva, the Alter Rebbe says in the Gersa Tshuva, Hi Tashuv Hei Tata. It's about returning the Hei Tata, the lower Hei of Yud Kei Vav Kei, the final Hei, which corresponds to spheres of Malchus, returning it back to its source instead of where it came down and was brought down to Klippus. But Tshuva Ilahi, Tashuv Hei Law Bina, and the higher level of Tshuva is Tashuv Hei, but the higher Hei, the first Hei of Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is Bina, that being returned to a higher level. So that's the Mishkan Ha'edus and Mishkan Stam. Mishkan Ha'edus is Tshuva Law, returning the Hei Law, and Mishkan Stam is Tshuva Tata. According to the opinion that the command they shall make for me a Migdash, and also the donation of the Mishkan was prior to the Chet HaEgel, the differences of opinion. Some say that the command to build the Mishkan was something that came totally after the sin of the golden calf, because that was supposed to replace and to atone for the sin of the golden calf. But others say no. The mitzvah to build the Mishkan, to build the Mishkan and even collecting the Nedavos was before the sin of the Egel. So that means the Mishkan at its core has to do with tzaddikim, not with Baal Tshuva. The whole premise of everything we were talking about before is that since the Mishkan was built as an atonement for the Chet HaEgel after Yom Kippur, etc., so it has to do with Tshuva, and therefore the two levels of Mishkan is two levels in Tshuva. But if we are going according to the opinion that the command for the Mishkan and the donations for the Mishkan was prior to the Chet HaEgel, so then it's not avoid of Tshuva. It has to do with tzaddikim. Sha'oz, how you call Yisrael b'madrega tzaddikim, that then all the Yidden were on a level of tzaddikim. So therefore, yesh loymar d'shtei abchinas sheva Mishkan, the two levels in the Mishkan, Mishkan Stam and Mishkan Ha'edus, the plain Mishkan, and the Mishkan of testimony, him shtei bechinas b'avoid tzaddikim, there are two levels in the avoid of tzaddikim. And what are these two levels? The why they came mitzvahs. The fact that Yidden are just a plain Mishkan, that's fulfilling the positive commandments. And that they are Mishkan of testimony through fulfilling the negative commandments. And the Rebbe goes on to say, perhaps we could say, the two aspects of Mishkan in the service of Tzaddikim, is also in the avodah of the inner soul powers. Mishkan Stam, the ordinary Mishkan is the avodah having to do with the heart, with the emotions. Mishkan Ha'edus Ha'avodas HaMoyach, and Mishkan of testimony has to do with the avodah of the brain, of the intellect. And this is also connected with the two ideas of Mishkan are positive and negative commandments. That's what's brought, that we said before. The mitzvahs esa is brought down, that's in the level of Vavke Haniglis. Vav is there, Ampin, He'achreina is Malchus. But, so again, we see the avodah having to do with midas, corresponds to mitzvahs esa. Mitzvahs is the same level in the shem Vavke as the mitzvahs are. Mitzvahs loisa and be Yudke, the mitzvahs loisa are in Yudke, the level of Moichin, the intellect, Yud Chachma Hei Bina, the level of Yud is Chachma and the Hei is Bina. So therefore it corresponds that in the avodas tzaddikim, Mishkan versus Mishkan Ha'edus could be mitzvahs aseh versus mitzvahs loisase, and also it could be midos, which is the Vavke, that's a Mishkan Stam, versus the Yudke, which is the level of the avodah of the intellect.